Jeanette Smith, and welcome to BeEmpowered2014.com, your hub for all things positively positivo. We're glad that you're joining us. This is our first ever Google Plus chat. We're looking forward to having some great interaction with you here, so make sure you bookmark us and visit often. Joining me, as always, our top-notch life coaches, our IMP coaches, as we call them. First, we'd like to introduce Bruno LaGreco, Master Life Coach. Hi, Bruno.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Good to have you.
Awesome.
He's dialing us in from Canada, and also with us today, Patrick Claiborne, our spiritual empowerment advisor. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Jeanette. How are you?
We're doing very well over here. So what I want to start with today is living authentically. At first blush, people might think, I feel like I live a pretty authentic life, but when you really take it in terms of what it means to live authentically, you might think again. So Bruno, why don't you kick it off today by really defining for us, what does it mean to live authentically?
To live authentically, it really means to be your purest form, your purest spiritual being you can possibly be. It's, honoring your strengths, it's honoring your core values, it's really satisfying your needs. Rather than, chasing the illusion of what you think you should be, it's really honoring and just embracing who you really are, your true essence. So living authentically is doing what you want to do because you want to do it rather than somebody else telling you that you should do it.
And Patrick, let's expound on that a little bit and talk about from the spiritual side of things. What does it mean to live authentically?
To live authentically means to get in touch with your identity, and you can do that through it comes through an investigation. It's easy to say just be yourself, but oftentimes we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are, and so we have to start asking questions. 3 questions we can ask: who am I, what do I want, and how do I propose to go get it? And when we start to really dig into those questions, who am I, and to see when that answer comes, is it really coming from within, or is it based upon what other people have said who we are supposed to be? And so part of that will be honoring also our values. And so when we start to talk about who am I, part of that is what do I value, what do I honor, what do I cherish, who do I worship, where do I go, what is my calling, what is my work, and those kinds of questions. So I think the way we get to that is to start really digging into ourselves.
Yeah, and a lot of times people will say, all right, maybe I'm not fully aware of who I am, so maybe I'm not living authentically, but where do I start? And one of the things that I recommend is kind of interviewing yourself in a way and finding out, do you do the little things, the little work? I always liken the analogy to when I go to the gym. You got the 5-pound weight that's not so hard to pick up, and then you start moving up and increasing that weight, and it gets a little tougher. So my 5-pound weight is, do you tell the truth about yourself, about how you feel, about where you are, just on a day-to-day basis? When people ask you, how you doing? Do you always just say, oh, I'm great? And not to say that may not be apropos sometimes. You might be in scenarios or situations where they're not really looking for you to divulge all your, emotional drama and trauma at that moment. But is it okay when people, and you're in the right environment, to say, I'm just okay, and be okay with that? And so that's where I always tell people to start is, do you feel comfortable speaking your truth? And I start off with baby steps. How are you doing today? When people upset you or disappoint you or you're frustrated, are you able to communicate that in a healthy way? Or do you eat it? Because those are the beginning seeds to you going down a trail of not living an authentic life. You're showing your representative of who you think you should be, how you think you should feel, and then you get upset because people start dealing with you based on the representative that you've given them. Bruno, weigh in.
Pretty much. I think that the automatic trigger that people have when you ask them, how are you doing, is to just say fine, because the majority of us are in this pattern. We don't really know how to assess our feelings. We don't really know, any other answer but I'm fine. The simple, like if we use your analogy of the 5 pound dumbbell before you move up to the 10, the first question, look back at your day, reflect on your day, and make time to go ask yourself, what makes me happy? What experience throughout the day made me happy? What experience made me sad? And really reflecting on these two questions. I do apologize. Reflecting on these two questions because they're so profound. Because when you do ask, yourself, what makes me happy? It makes you take pause because now you really got to do think throughout your day. What were those experiences that added joy or added, a positive emotion? And so you start thinking through. Similarly, what made me sad? Going through that process and identifying the experiences that made you sad or that made you feel less than or whatever the case may be, and really understanding it. That's the first step in identifying who am I. Because from the answers that you get from these two questions, you start to really, kind of put together a view, a vision of, what are those things and, which direction should I start working towards.
Yeah, good point. Patrick.
Well, I think if we take both of those analogies, the how are you doing and the 5 pound weight, think about the dynamic that pushes us when somebody says, how you doing? We say, I'm fine. Or we ask somebody how they're doing, and we expect them to say, I'm fine. We don't take the time to say, I really want to know how you're doing. I'll sit here for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and listen to what you really want to say. We know that people are in a hurry, and we know that people really don't want to hear. So we'll just say, I'm fine. Because
what are you doing?
It takes
Right.
time. So when you talk about going to the gym, it actually takes time. The reason why so many people don't go to the gym is because they will say to themselves, I don't have the time. I don't have the luxury. They think it's a luxury to go work out until they realize it's a necessity that I have to do these things. And so when we talk about asking ourselves the questions, what makes me happy, what makes me sad, who am I, what are my values, what do I want, how am I supposed to get it, that takes an amount of time that we have to carve out of our day, from shopping lists and work and school and kids and home and marriage and relationships and families and everything else. It takes an amount of time for us to do that. Will we ever carve out that time for ourselves and then to carve out the time to really show our authentic selves to someone else?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Go ahead. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, we all complain about time and not having enough time to focus on me and focus on the things that are important. But here's the trick. If you actually did slow down and get out of your head and just bring yourself to the present moment, time would actually slow right down, and you would appreciate the time, and you would actually have more time to make time for me. So it's like it's really getting out of your own head.
Right. No, I love that. I want to, with the remainder of our time, talk about what we see as some of the bigger blocks when you deal with clients or when you deal with those, in your case, Patrick, parishioners that come to you about living authentically, or they're dealing with a challenge, whether it be, it's usually relational, right? Whether it's relational to me or to whomever is immediately around me. In terms of challenges I see a lot, it's honoring ourselves and shame. When we don't realize that we dishonor ourselves when we don't speak our truth. We don't realize that you think sometimes I'm doing the noble thing, I'm letting you have it. I'm not going to rock the boat, so to speak. I'm going to keep smooth sailing here between us by kind of just biting and swallowing maybe what I feel that is in conflict with what you think or feel, is not the same perspective that you might have, because I'm not honoring, or I don't feel like I deserve in some ways, and it's not even always cognizant. It's just that I'm going to relent and let you have this. I'm not going to speak my truth. But what I try to explain is how we do damage from the inside out, because all of us, all the parts of us, mind, body, and spirit, we expect us to advocate for ourselves. So every time you let yourself down, you don't stand up for yourself, whether it be in small ways or big ways, you're doing it's like little cuts, little tears. And then you wonder one day why somebody says one thing to you and it's like, where did that come from? It's usually years of dishonoring yourself. Anybody else want to share their challenges they've seen?
Absolutely, 100%. That's exactly what I get. The common one is exactly that, shame and guilt. That something is fundamentally wrong with me, that if people should find out what that is, I will be rejected, I won't be accepted, I won't be heard, I won't be understood. I mean, there's a whole list of underlying currencies, I call them, that they have these perceived thoughts that is going to happen to them should anybody find out what their shame is. So that's the big one. The other big one is, feeling unworthy. Like you said, am I deserving? Am I good enough? And so you tend to dumb down your worth and just let people have it. But you're right, over a long period of time, that builds up as resentment, very angry, and you start throwing darts at people because you're tired. People get tired of being the doormat and being taken for granted, and so it's just a matter of time before they snap. So those are the common ones that I definitely see within my practice, is shame, an extraordinary amount of shame for various reasons, and a lot of men and a lot of women dumbing down their worth.
Yeah, yeah, Patrick.
And I think if we broaden the scope, it also comes from enculturation, that certain systems will force people to say, stay in your lane because I am not worthy. I won't rock a boat because I don't deserve it. And so when you talk about churches, when you talk about families, when you talk about marriages, when you talk about certain jobs and communities, they have already set what is normative stream of thought, what is the normative pattern, and regardless of who the identity is, you will fit into these patterns and categories. And so when we're talking about who am I, the who am I may be somebody far distinct and far unique from the patterns and categories that these systems have outlined for us. And so then there's a kind of cultural pressure to say, no, everything's okay, or I'll bite on my shame, I'll bite on my guilt, or I'll bite on my feelings of feeling like I can do more than what this cultural surrounding has for me. And so husbands and wives won't say things to each other because the system has said, this needs to be a happy marriage. We won't say things in church because the system has said we need to follow this strict guideline. We won't say things on our jobs because we don't want to lose that job, because somehow losing that job is deemed as dishonorable. And we can go on and on and on, but we can't ever underestimate the cultural pressure that gets put on us to not be authentic.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that works in so many different areas. What society determines is the norm, whether it be for women, how we look, or for men, what success looks like. Always trying to compare and compete with that ideal of what society expects. Well, this is just a taste of some of the great conversation and talk that you'll be getting here on beempowered2014.com. We look forward to having live exchanges and interactions with you as we post live to Facebook and take Q&A here on Google+. And so if you have a topic that you'd like to discuss, go ahead and email us. Hit the contact tab and drop your name, email address, and just let us know what you'd like to hear us discuss, and look forward to interacting with you on a different level. If you'd like to know more about our great empowerment coaches who are geniuses in their own right, visit our About page. You'll learn more about Bruno and his practice, and where you can check him out on his YouTube channel, as well as his book that's out, Stop Self-Sabotage. Also, Patrick has an About page too, where you can get more information on him, as do I. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this edition of Be Empowered. We'll see you next time.